Ever since FNAF 4, the identity of the crying child, or bite victim, the player character in the minigames, has been a mystery, but arguably a bigger mystery is this kid's actual name. With numerous theories out there, I thought it would be fun to discuss all the main options for what the bite victim's name is, go over the evidence for each name going from least to most likely. It's kinda weird that this character has now existed for almost 9 years, and we have names for pretty much everyone else except this kid. Or at least, we don't have a name that has been blatantly told to us in the games. But there are some theories that can be made from stuff like the books and other media, so without further ado, let's try to figure it out. Easily the least likely option, and technically not really an option at all for the bite victim's name, is Chris Afton. This is a name that never actually appeared or was implied to be the bite victim's name. Nobody in the series except one Fazbear Frights protagonist has been named Chris, so it's weird that so many people actually believe this, but there is a reason. Chris Afton is actually a fan name for the crying child, which seems to have originated in the fan-made animated FNAF series called FNAF Hidden Lore by Zapper770. I don't know if it's actually from that, but I think it is, and it's the earliest thing that I know of with the name. I always thought this series was pretty entertaining, albeit a little goofy at times, but the name of the bite victim in that series was Chris, and eventually this spread to people using the name for a lot of weird gacha FNAF stuff, and I really have no idea why people believe that this was the actual name for the bite victim in the games, especially since the name was always fan-made and never appeared in the actual games. Not to mention, in the Hidden Lore series, almost no one had the same names they had in the games. The Henry equivalent was named Fred, the William equivalent was named Peter, and the older brother equivalent was named Terrence, and the storyline was also heavily inaccurate. It was never meant to be an accurate representation of the FNAF lore, so I really don't know why so many people trusted it for the bite victim's name. The next theorized option for the bite victim's name is Norman. This is a bit of an odd one because in FNAF VR there was an object in the files with the name Norman Bedroom. Many people took this to mean that the bite victim was named Norman, since the FNAF 4 bedroom is supposedly the bite victim's, and that would mean that the owner of the bedroom, Norman, would be the bite victim. But there's quite a few problems with this. First of all, Norman Bedroom was the name of a stock asset, and if I'm not mistaken, the asset isn't even of the bedroom. And second of all, the FNAF 4 bedroom literally isn't the bite victim's. It's an experiment room meant to simulate an actual bedroom that would have a child in it whom Afton would be experimenting on, shown in Didophobia and Sister Location, and while the bite victim may have been one of the experiment victims, it's not actually his bedroom. Even if this was meant to allude to the player of FNAF 4 rather than the actual owner of the bedroom, that would still be wrong, as we play as Michael in FNAF 4, not the bite victim, as we know from the logbook and the appearance of the FNAF 1 phone call. So this theory doesn't work at all. With that being said though, it's at least more likely than Chris, because it at least is a name that appears in the games and is relatively connected with the bite victim, but at the same time, it's really not. More likely than Chris, but more likely than impossible is not very hard to do. The next name is actually an entire theory in and of itself: Mike. After the survival logbook came out, a lot of people began believing the bite victim was named Michael. This is due to the survival logbook's faded text seemingly talking to Michael and saying things that only apply to the bite victim. However, as I and many other people have gone over in the past, this theory doesn't make much sense at all, mostly due to the alter text in the book, which is separate from Michael, implying the faded text and the bite victim are talking in the book and Michael is separate from them. I made a whole video a while ago about all the big evidence that Mike is the older brother, so you can check that out if you want. Regardless, I think it's pretty much undeniable that Michael Afton is the older Foxy Bro, and there's obviously no reason to believe that both the Foxy Bro and the crying child were named Mike. That much is also pretty clear. So Mike being the bite victim's name at least has a base, but it still very much is unlikely. Similarly, there's a theory that also states that the bite victim is actually named Cassidy. We know by now that Cassidy is the spirit that possesses Golden Freddy, and there is some evidence to suggest that the bite victim is Golden Freddy as well, something I once believed and currently don't really have an opinion on, besides the fact that I think it's probably not true, but it technically could be. The theory was mostly based around the belief of both Cassidy and the bite victim being Golden Freddy, but also not believing that there were two spirits in Golden Freddy, which would make them the same person. However, there is of course the issue of Cassidy's gender. In every form we've seen Cassidy in, they've always been a girl. In the fourth closet, where they appeared for the first time, they were described as a little girl with long black hair. In the survival logbook, which indicated to us that Cassidy existed in the games and was Golden Freddy, there's an image on a page about your happiest day, where the puppet is seen giving cake to a little girl with black hair. Just like how in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame, the puppet gives cake to Golden Freddy, and Golden Freddy is Cassidy, who is described with long black hair. So basically, Cassidy is shown in the logbook as a girl. It's also worth mentioning that Cassidy is never actually said to have straight hair, just long hair, and the fact that this girl's hair is in pigtails doesn't prevent that from being the case. Just wanted to mention that in case somebody wanted to point that out in the comments. There's also the point of Princess Quest, where the princess, who I believe to be Cassidy, is, well, a princess and not a prince. Sure, it's a video game in-universe and not a true depiction of what Cassidy looks like, but I feel like if Cassidy was meant to be a boy, they probably would have just made it a prince because there's not really a point to make it a princess. Everywhere we have seen Cassidy throughout the series, they've been a girl, yet the bite victim is a boy. It also just doesn't really make sense to gender swap them in the books because what's really the point of that? Technically, it could be possible that they did that, but it's extremely unlikely and I doubt that. Now let's get into a very despised option. Gregory. Is Gregory a robot? Most people would probably say no. Would I say no? Maybe, I don't know. But what I do know is that there are a lot of connections between the bite victim and Gregory. Although it's memed to death, most of the appearance connections that MatPat pointed out are actually true. The brown hair with a piece falling between his eyes and the shorts and the t-shirt with 2 stripes on it match the bite victim very well. There's also the art of the bite victim in the character encyclopedia, which was brand new art that we'd never seen before, and in it, there's a band-aid on the bite victim's leg in the exact same place one of Gregory's band-aids is. There's also Gregory being called broken, and although it is censorship, the fact that it's that specific wording is definitely worth calling out, and him biting into the head of a yellow Freddy candy is definitely interesting. I'm not saying that Gregory is literally the bite victim, and I'm not saying that he's meant to be a robot of the bite victim. I'm just saying that in some ways, I think they are meant to be, at the very least, thematic parallels. However, does this mean that Gregory is the bite victim's name? I doubt it, because again, they aren't literally the same person, and so nothing indicates that the bite victim would be named Gregory. And if Gregory were to be a robot of the bite victim, the name doesn't really have to be accurate because it's a recreation of him, not the real him, so he could have just gotten a fake name. Now onto the most popular option that way too many people are way too confident about, Evan. This was a fan theory on Reddit a couple years ago that kinda blew up, even getting covered by MatPat. Basically, the pages on which certain questions from the Fata text, the ones the Ultra text responds to, were in the logbook could be placed into the Foxy grid to spell out the name Evan. However, the way the N was discovered turned out to be a bit different. The N was discovered without using the page number of a question, but rather the Night 2 feelings about tonight's shift, which was already messed with by one of the spirits in the logbook. Even the original poster, Wolfie 1740 Kingdom, admitted that this method to find the N wasn't that satisfying. However, in the real Jake from Fazbear Frights, there is a character named Michael who acts pretty robotic, similar to the game's Michael Afton, and he has a brother who is named Evan. It's never specified whether Evan is older or younger, but the fact that a guy named Michael has a brother named Evan, and there's a code in the logbook to find the name Evan for the bite victim would be mighty coincidental. However, the method of finding the N definitely does put a hole in the theory. Also, although this guy's name being Mike is definitely worth noting for the theory, it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, as there's 4 total characters in Fazbear Frights that are named Mike. None of them, however, are the real Michael Afton, so the name of this guy's brother, while definitely interesting and possibly relevant, does not have to mean something. Maybe it does, but it's not certain. Evan being the bite victim's name is definitely a possibility, and I could see it being the case, but I'm not so sure about it. I've also heard some people try to use Wolfie's code in different ways, trying to find a different solution for the 4th letter. One theory involved using I'm scared as a response to Do You Have Dreams, as a reference to the FNAF 4 nightmares and the bite victim being afraid of them, the page of which results in a D on the Foxy grid. Backwards, this whole thing spells out the name Dave, which some have suggested could be the bite victim's name, which it could. Dave is also the fake name Afton used in the books, and given how it goes down, it's possibly also the name he used to kill the Save Them kids in the games. So maybe he based the name off his son, or maybe the bite victim knew he used that as a fake name and was referencing his father for some reason, and it's not actually the bite victim's name. Or maybe it's just a coincidence and not an actual code. Regardless, Evan is a possibility for the name of the bite victim, and so is Dave, but I don't think that they're the most likely option. I feel like so many people are just completely convinced that Evan is the bite victim's name, when in reality, there are some flaws with the theory. The most likely option for the bite victim's name to me is just Garrett. Garrett is the name of Mike's younger brother in the FNAF movie, the death of whom Mike blamed himself for because he was supposed to be looking after his brother. Obviously, the way the bite victim and Garrett die is different, one being killed by Michael with Fredbear, and one being by Afton and going missing, but the fact that it's Mike's younger brother who dies and whose death Mike feels guilty for entirely matches both characters, not to mention the actor for Garrett, Lucas Grant, holds a Fredbear plushie in behind-the-scenes photos and stuff. Also, although Abby is usually a nickname for Abigail, the Ab in Elizabeth can make Abby a nickname for Elizabeth. It's not a traditional one, but it's an entirely possible one, and I feel like it probably was intentional given the fact that she's Mike's younger sister. I'd expect they'd probably have chosen it to just have her be Elizabeth, but also not be the same character, and try to differentiate her while still having her be the same character. Although, as I said, it's not traditionally what Abby is short for, people in real life absolutely do use Abby as a nickname for Elizabeth. So, if Abby is the movie version of Elizabeth, even if they're quite different characters, Garrett is likely the movie version of the bite victim, even if there are differences. So, Garrett, maybe Gary for short, being the bite victim's name is most likely to me, because it's really the only name for him that we have gotten. So, does that mean that we should all start calling the bite victim Garrett? No. No, it doesn't. Although it's the most likely option, it's technically not certain, and because it's not certain, it's better to just continue calling him what we do know for certain about him. He's the crying child. Or the bite victim. Does he have a name? Probably. Is it Garrett? Probably. Should we call him that? Probably not. If you want to, sure, but I'm just gonna keep calling him the bite victim. Also, please just stop calling him Evan. Even if you believe his name is Evan, and even if you just want to call him that so you don't have to call him the bite victim, sure, but don't treat it like it's canon, please, because it's honestly probably not. But that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and let me know what you think the bite victim's name is. But that's all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys!